Good day, everyone. I am Dato Ernger Bridges-Swat, and the topic we're going to talk about in our chapter is about the internal and external institutions and influences of corporate governance. The, the learning objective entails about this chapter is about show the legal framework that affected the corporate governance locally. Legal framework talks about the laws, the rules, and policies that affects the corporate governance locally, only in the Philippines. Enumerate and explain the internal foundations of corporate governance. Explain the functions, duties, and responsibilities of board of directors, CEO, CFO, and shareholders. Enumerate and explain different external environment of corporate governance. Explain what anti-takeover defenses means, including its advantages and disadvantages. Understand and explain shareholders' impossible limitations. Identify and expound on the leading behavioral management theories that contributed to the understanding of human behavior at work. So for the introduction, as we know that corp- corporation is an artificial being the that cannot live without its that cannot come into existence without the know or the acknowledgement of the law. The foundation of good corporate governance is the intellectual honesty of directors and senior management. This intellectual honesty is expressed by acting in the best interest of the incapacitated company. So kung ano yung kulang ng o kung ano yung lacking ng isang corporation, it is best that the people or the employees who are working for the corporation must act best in the interest kung ano yung kakulangan nila. They will work kung anong what they lack in the competency, para ganun nga. It is the quality of governance that is important and not the quantity. So, it is important kung ano yung makaya nila or yung kanilang competent but not the quantity. Mindless compliance with a set of rules is not good governance. Good governance connotes acting with responsibility, accountability, fairness, and transparency. Transparency has a withering effect on the misconduct and is absolutely critical on communicating to stakeholders and any decisions of the board. So it is important that hindi lang basta-basta gina-follow but rather a good corporate governance must act with integrity, like taking into the mind with responsibility, accountability, and fairness and transparency when incorporating good governance in the company or corporation. Corporate governance in the Philippines. As we know that corporate governance is needed to make corporate managements make more accountable and their auditors more rigorous. It's like a governing body, okay? The Philippine Securities and Exchange Commissions, a principal players in matters of corporate governance, issued Memorandum Circular Number 2, Series of 2002, otherwise known as the Code of Corporate Governance under SEC Resolution Number 135 dated April 4, 2002. The code is now effective. This code aims to promote corporate governance reforms that will raise investors' confidence, develop capital market, and help achieve high sustainable growth for the corporation sectors and economy. The code applies to corporations whose securities are registered, corporations who are grantees of permits and licenses, and secondary franchisees from the Commission, public companies, and fourth is branches or subsidiaries of foreign corporations operating in the Philippines whose securities are registered or listed. So the internal foundation of corporate governance, there are a lot, but first is the board of directors. Board of directors are the appointed body or the appointed trusted by the shareholders who are jointly oversee the activities and the overall managerial and operational aspects of the corporation. Their authorities and responsibilities of are and the purpose of the board of directors mostly is, or the important is the responsibility of the board of directors is to protect the resources and generate profit to make sure that the shareholders receive a decent return on their investment. The board of directors is the top governing authority within the management structure of any public listed company.
Structure and makeup of the board of directors. The board of directors is a group of men and women called directors who are elected by the shareholders of a company. Their main role is to guide and oversee the company, not to run daily operations. So yes, they make important decisions such as setting company goals, approving major policies, hiring or evaluating top executives. So for example, in a large company like a bank, the board may include business leaders, lawyers, accountants, and industry experts to ensure balanced decision making. Committees on the board of directors. To work efficiently, the board creates committees, each focusing on a specific responsibility. So there are two common committees include Audit Committee, checks financial reports and ensures accuracy. The second one is the Compensation Committee, decides salaries and benefits of executives. So these committees help the board handle complex tasks more effectively. So for example, the Audit Committee reviews the company's financial statements before they are shown to shareholders. Ownership structure and its impact on the board of directors. So, the ownership structure refers to who owns the company and how much they own. This affects how powerful and independent the board is. So, if ownership is spread among many shareholders, the board has more independence. If ownership is concentrated, for example, one family owns most shares, the board may be influenced by that group. For example, a family-owned corporation may have family members dominating the board, which can affect objectivity. What is Chief Executive Officer or CEO? So, the CEO is the highest-ranking executive in the organization. The CEO is responsible for executing the strategies and policies approved by the board. The CEO acts as the bridge between the board of directors and the company daily operation. For example, if the board decides to expand internationally, the CEO ensures this plan is implemented. Support to the board. One key responsibility of the CEO is to support the board by providing accurate information, reports, and professional advice. This helps the board make informed decisions. So, for example, the CEO may present quarterly performance reports during board meetings. Delivery of programs, products, and services or PPS. The CEO oversees the design, marketing, promotion, delivery, and quality of the company's product or services. The CEO is also the brand bearer, meaning they represent the company's image. So for example, a CEO may appear in public interviews to promote a company's new product. Financial risk and tax management. The CEO recommends the annual budget to the board and ensures company resources are used wisely. The CEO also manages financial risk, tax responsibilities, compliance with budget guidelines. For example, the CEO ensures departments do not exceed their approved budget. Human capital management. Human capital refers to the employees of the organization. Yes, the CEO ensures staff are managed properly according to company policies and laws. So this includes hiring and training, fair compensation, and legal compliance. For example, ensuring labor laws are followed when hiring new employees. Public relations or PR. The CEO ensures the organization has a positive public image and that its mission and service are visible to the community. So good PR builds trust and credibility. The CEO may attend for example, the CEO may attend community events or speak at conferences to present the company. So what is Chief Financial Officer or CFO? Chief Financial Officer is responsible for managing the company's financial health. Yes. So this role is critical for growth and stability. The CFO works closely with the CEO and board. Implements internal control. So internal controls are systems that ensure financial accuracy, fraud prevention, proper use of funds. So the CFO designs and enforces these controls. For example, requiring approvals before large expenses are paid. Supervises major impact projects. So the CFO oversees projects that involve like large investments or financial risks and analyzes different options. For example, evaluating whether it is cheaper to lease or buy a new equipment. Develops relations with financing resources. So the CFO builds relationships with bank, investors, and financial institutions. So these relationships help the company obtain funding when needed. For example, negotiating loans with banks to expand operations. Advisor to management. The CFO advises management on financial matters, helping leaders make informed decisions. For example, advising whether the company can afford to launch a new product. Drives major strategic issues. The CFO plays an active role in major long-term decisions that affect the future of the company. For example, providing financial forecasts for company expansion. Risk manager, because the CFO understands the company's finances deeply, they can identify and manage financial risks. So, for example, preparing plans to handle economic downturns. Relationship role. The CFO acts as a bridge between departments, management, investors, and the board. For example, explaining financial results to non-financial managers. Lastly is the objective referee. The CFO must remain fair and unbiased, especially when advising the CEO or board on accounting issues. So, for example, reporting financial losses honestly, even if it reflects poorly on management.
Shareholders are owners of shares in a corporation, kaya may rights and responsibilities sila. May rights sila to receive dividends, to transfer their shares, and to vote para sa mga decisions about company. So may right din sila to get information how the company is doing. Pero dapat gamitin nila yung rights nila in a responsible way. Hindi dapat masira yung operations or competitiveness ng company dahil sa actions ng shareholders. So next is yung role ng shareholders. So role nila is mag-approve ng mga major decision ng corporation. Sila yung ga-decide kapag may merger or reorganization. And kailangan din yung approval nila kung ibebenta yung assets ng company. And sila rin yung galagay ng or gatanggal ng restrictions sa business activities. And sila yung ga-approve ng changes sa share capital and gadagdag or gabawas ng numbers of directors. And gina-approve din nila yung laws and rules tungkol sa issue, transfer, at ownerships of share. Shareholders' ability to change the board. So, ang shareholders is pwede palitan nila yung mga board of directors kung hindi sila satisfied sa ginagawa ng mga directors. So, halimbawa, kung hindi maayos yung management ng company o hindi nila gusto yung decision ng directors, is pwede nila itong tanggalin and wag na nilang iboto ulit. Sa ganitong paraan is mas may control yung shareholders sa pagpili ng mga taong magpapatakbo ng company at masisiguro na mas maayos yung management. external environment of corporate governance. So, first is the auditor. So, sila yung nagbabantay kung maayos ba yung takbo ng company. Tinitingnan nila kung tama ba yung records, reports, kung sinusunod ba yung rules, or kung maayos yung pagbabayad ng tax. Next is the legal environment. Ito naman yung tungkol sa mga batas na sinusunod ng isang company. Kasama dito yung law sa sariling bansa, law ng foreign countries kung saan sila ga-operate, and pati international laws. So, importante ito kasi ito yung gasat ng rules kung paano dapat tumakbo yung negosyo para maging fair and legal yung operations nila. And the market. So, markets are very important in corporate governance and may tatlong central points ito. The product market, capital market, and managerial labor market. Because of this is makikita kung kaya ng company mag-perform, mag-stay, and mag-grow. Next is other external factors. So, ito yung mga bagay sa labas ng organization na hindi nila totally control, pero malaki yung effect nito sa kung paano sila ga-operate. First is political environment. Ito yung tungkol sa politics ng country or lugar kung saan ga-operate yung organization. Examples, mga laws, policies, tax, and government decision. So, lahat yan is may effect sa business. So, next is technological environment. So, ito naman is tungkol siya sa new technologies and innovations. So, kapag hindi mabilis mag-adapt ang organization sa bagong technology is pwede maging outdated yung system and process nila. Kaya kailangan lagi sila ga-update and ga-adjust. Lalo na yung mga business na technology dependent tulad ng online store, banks, or tech companies. Last is the social environment. So, ito is tungkol siya sa general behavior ng society and sa values ng mga tao na involved sa organization. Ibig sabihin is kung paano mag-isip and kumilos yung mga tao is may epekto sa kung paano gumagana ang organization and kung gaano ito katagal mag-e-exist. Kaya mahalaga na yung organization is gaayon siya sa social values and norms ng society para maayos yung operations nila.
Good day, everyone. Today, I will be discussing the corporate protection, focusing on directors and officers in insurance, including the liability issues, indemnification, and anti-takeover defenses. So first, let's look at the liability issues faced by the officers and directors. So one major issue is the misappropriation, which refers to the unauthorized use of company assets or funds for personal gain. Another conflict of interest is when officers or directors fails to disclose personal interests that may influence the corporate decisions. So there are also breach of loyalty, which actions are taken that are detrimental to the corporation in favor of the personal benefit. Lastly, the lack of prudence refers to the failure to exercise a reasonable care in managing corporate affairs. So because of these risks, indemnification of officers and directors is very important. Indemnification involves the reimbursing officers and directors for expenses and liabilities incurred while defending the claim to the corporate actions. So this mechanism is crucial. This mechanism is crucial in attracting qualified individuals to this high-risk position because it limits their personal financial exposure. Most corporate bylaws include the provisions for indemnification and insurance to provide a strong legal basis for these protections. So this leads us to the role of directors and officers, or the DO insurance. DO insurance provides the coverage when indemnification is not legally permissible or when the company does not have enough resources to cover the costs. Although it is costly, that DO insurance is considered essential because executives make high-stakes decisions. It offers a separate coverage distinct from generally liability insurance, as it specifically covers the acts by officers and the directors, or the OD. However, insurers are increasingly adding the exclusions to manage their risk, making coverage more specific. Without the directors and or the DO insurance, it will be very difficult for them to find individuals who are willing to accept the responsibilities and potential liabilities of serving as corporate officers or directors. So next, we discuss the anti-takeover defenses. So these are the strategies companies use to prevent unwanted acquisitions or the hostile takeovers, protecting their independence and shareholder interests. So the examples of this include shark repellent measures, which are debtor hostile bidders, poison pills, which allow existing shareholders to buy more shares at a discount to dilute the bidder's stake, and a debt facade, which companies take over on significant debt to discourage acquirers. So these defenses have advantages such as the protecting undervalued stock, deterring malicious acquisitions, and providing short-term stability during the difficult periods. However, there are also disadvantages of this strategy. They may block the beneficial takeovers, entrench the management, and allow the board complacency. So, therefore, best practices include the verifying legality, choosing the methods that protect without harming the company image, carefully assessing the debt risk, consulting the professionals, and using these tactics only when it is necessary. So, in all, with effective corporate protection requires balancing protection, the accountability, and the growth to ensure the long-term success. That's it. Thank you.
Corporate Protection, Directors and Officers Insurance. Ang Directors and Officers Insurance ay protection para sa mga directors at officers ng kumpanya laban sa personal liability na maaring magmula sa kanilang mga desisyon at aksyon sa pamahalalang negosyo. Liability issues for officers and directors. Isa sa mga posibleng pananagutan ay misappropriation, kung saan ginagamit ang assets o pondo ng kumpanya para sa personal na kapakinabangan ng walang pahintulot. Mayroon ding conflict of interest na nangyayari kapag hindi dinideklara ng opisyal ang personal ng interest na maaring makaapekto sa kanyang desisyon sa kumpanya. Ang breach of loyalty ay kapag ang isang director o officer ay kumikilos laban sa interest ng corporation at inuuna ang sariling pakinabang, samantala ang lack of prudence ay tumutukoy sa kabiguang gumamit ng sapat na pag-iingat at tamang paghusga sa paggawa ng mga desisyon. Dahil sa mga panganib na ito, mahalaga ang D&O insurance bilang proteksyon sa mga opisyal na kumpanya habang ginagampanan nila ang kanilang tungkulin. Other shareholder provisions. Kasama rin sa shareholders agreements ang strategic investors' rights na nagbibigay ng special na business o investment privilege sa mga investors na may mahalagang ambag sa kumpanya. Meron ding restriction on share transfer na naglilimita sa pagbebenta o paglilipat ng shares upang mapanatili ang control at stability ng kumpanya. Ang restrictive covenants naman ay naman ay mga kondisyon na pumipigil sa management o shareholders na makipagkumpetensya o mang-akit ng clients o employees matapos umalis sa kumpanya. Samantala, ang exit provisions ay nagbibigay ng paraan lalo na sa minority shareholders na makalabas sa kanilang investment kung kinakailangan, tulad ng buyout arrangements. Importance. Mahalaga ang mekanismong ito dahil nililimitahan nila ang sobrang kapangyarihan ng shareholders, pinoprotektahan ng investors at sinisiguro ang stability ng kumpanya. Dahil dito, nagiging mas secure ang investments, kaya mahalagang magkaroon ng malinaw na shareholders agreements bago mag-commit ng malaking puhunan. Okay, let's proceed to shareholders' imposable limitations. Ang shareholder voting agreements ay legal na kasunduan kung saan nagkakasundo ang mga shareholders kung paano nila iboboto ang kanilang shares, lalo na sa board election at major corporate decisions. Pinapayagan ito ng Corporation Code of the Philippines basta't legal at walang masamang layunin. Nakakatulong ito para makilos ang shareholders bilang isang grupo at maabot ang kanilang mga layunin. Shareholder Management Agreements. Ang shareholder management agreements ay nagpoprotekta sa investors at nagtatakda ng kanilang kontrol at karapatan sa kumpanya. Kasama rito ang karapatang mag-a-appoint ng directors, veto rights sa mahalagang desisyon, at na approval sa business plans at budget. Nalilimitahan din ito ng pagbabago sa scope of business, nililinaw ang intellectual property rights, at nagbibigay ng access sa financial reports. Meron ding management warranties at special rights para strategic investors.
Good day, everyone. Today, I will discuss the behavioral management theory, also known as the human relations approach. This theory focuses on human behavior, motivation, and relationships in workplace. Unlike the classical management theory, which treated workers like machines, behavioral management theory believes that employees perform better when their emotional, social, and psychological needs are understood and valued. So, ibig sabihin, mahalaga hindi lang ang trabaho mismo, kundi pati kung paano tinatrato ng maayos ang employees. So, one of the key contributors is Alton Mayo, who conducted the Hawthorne studies. His research showed that productivity increased not because of physical changes like lighting. So another important contributor is Abraham Maslow, who introduced the hierarchy of needs. According to Maslow, human needs motivate behavior and are arranged from basic needs to higher level needs. So this includes psychological needs, safety, belongingness, and love, esteem, and self-actualization. Once a need is satisfied, it no longer motivates a person. So this theory helps manager understand what motivates employees at different stages. So yun. So next is Douglas McGregor, who developed Theory X and Theory Y. So Theory X assumes that employees are lazy and need strict supervision, while Theory Y believes that employees are responsible, motivated, and capable of self-direction. McGregor emphasized that a manager beliefs can influence employee behavior, make it into self-fulfilling prophecy. So lastly is Frederick Herzberg, introduced the two-factor theory. He explained that hygiene factors such as salary, company policies, and working conditions prevent dissatisfactions but do not motivate employees. On the other hand, motivators like achievement, recognition, and growth lead to satisfaction. According to Herzberg, true motivations comes from meaningful work, not just money. So, basically, ibig sabihin, hindi lang pera ang importante. Kailangan din ng meaningful at fulfilling na trabaho. Kumbaga parang, kailangan din natin ng maging productive and ibigay yung best sa trabaho upang para mas magiging parang nagiging motivate yun sa boss natin.
Good day everyone, I'm Desiree Sapalon. So this slide introduces Herzberg two-factor theory, or also known as the motivator and hygiene theory, which was proposed by Frederick Herzberg in 1959. According to him, there are certain job factors that lead to job satisfaction, and there are different job factors that prevent dissatisfaction. Also, he emphasized that satisfaction and dissatisfaction are not opposites. The opposite of satisfaction is no satisfaction, while the opposite of dissatisfaction is no dissatisfaction. This means that removing negative factors does not automatically make employees satisfied. Instead, organization must address both types of factors to effectively manage motivation in the workplace. So hygiene, this factor has the effect to reduce motivated workers. The hygiene factors affect the condition of the workplace. If the hygiene in the area is not adequate, then workers might not want to work. According to Frederick Herzberg, hygiene factors are elements of the work environment that influence and employee dissatisfaction. So these forms do not motivate employees or create job satisfaction when present. However, when they are absent or inadequate, they lead to job dissatisfaction. So hygiene factors are essential because they form the foundation of a stable work environment. Without them, employees may feel uncomfortable, insecure, or unfairly treated, which negatively affects performance and morale. So, for example, is the working conditions. Working conditions, this includes physical work environment, safety, the equipment, and workload. So, poor working conditions increase stress and dissatisfactions. Example are employees working in a poorly ventilated office with outdated equipment, so they may feel uncomfortable and stressed. Improving office facilities and providing proper tools reduces this dissatisfaction, but employees will not necessarily free. So next is the motivation factors or the motivators. So Herzberg two factors theory explains that employee motivation is influenced by factors that create a job satisfactions known as the motivation factors or motivators. So unlike the hygiene factors which only prevent dissatisfaction, motivation factors directly encourage individual to perform better and feel fulfilled at work. These factors are closely related to psychological needs such as the personal growth, achievement, and self-development. Herzberg developed the concept that there are two distinct human needs. So, physiological, according to the Herzberg, these refer to the most basic requirements for human survival and comfort. So this includes food, shelter, rest, and protection from physical discomfort. In the context of Herzberg theory, these needs are closely linked to hygiene factors such as salary and wages. Money becomes important because it allows individuals to avoid unpleasant conditions like hunger, homelessness, and unsafe living environments. So, when employees receive adequate compensation, they can buy nutritious food, secure housing, and meet daily living expenses. So this helps reduce stress and physical discomfort, allowing them to focus on their work. However, while meeting physiological needs prevents dissatisfaction, it does not necessarily motivate individuals to perform better. It simply creates a stable and acceptable working condition where higher level needs and motivation can be developed. So, while the psychological needs, it refers to the desire for personal growth, achievement, and self-development. So these needs are fulfilled through meaningful work, learning opportunities, and challenges that allow an individual to improve skills and grow. Meeting these needs increase motivation, job satisfaction, and overall engagement.
Good day, everyone. I will now discuss our ESOP, or Employees Stock Ownership Plan. So, ESOP ay isang uri ng employee benefits plan kung saan binibigyan ng ownership interest ng mga employees sa company na pinagtatabuhan nila. Ibig sabihin, nagiging part owner ang employees ng company kadalasan sa pamamagitan ng company stock. Dahil dito, mas nagiging motivated ang mga employees kasi may personal sila stake sa tagumpay ng kumpanya. Next, we have a criteria for effective organization. First, organized for business performance, meaning maayos ang sistema para maging efficient at productive ang company. Pangalawa, minimal management presence, kung saan kaunti lang ang layers ng management levels ng management para mas mabilis ang decision making. At pangatlo, facilities, training, and testing for future leaders. Ibig sabihin, may sinasanay na agad ang employees para maging future leaders ng organization. Moving to organizational structure, ito ang pattern ng relationship sa loob ng organization. Dito makikita kung paano ihahati ang trabaho, paano nagko-cooperate ang mga members, at paano na-achieve ang common goals. It also defines tasks, responsibilities, roles, and communication choices, channels ng bawat isa. Lastly, we have principles of organizational design diagnosis. Kasama dito ang simple structure na simple at direct, ang authority, professional bureaucracy, kung saan experts ang gumagawa ng decision, advocacy, na flexible at innovative ang structure, machine bureaucracy, na highly structured at may clear goals, at divisionalized form of bureaucracy, kung saan pinahati ang organization into division based on products or service. And that concludes my conclusion. So next, let's discuss the different types of organizational structure and their advantages and disadvantages. First is functional structure. Sa structure na ito, ang employees ay grouped based on sa nilang specialization tulad ng HR, marketing, and finance. Ang advantages nito ay may nagagamit ng maayos ang specialized skills ng employees at mas maraming career growth opportunities. Pero ang disadvantages naman, nagkakaroon minsan ng conflicts between departments at nagiging mahirap mag-adapt kapag nag-expand ang products or service ng company. Next is the product or service structure. Dito naman nakabase ang organization sa products or service na in-offer nila. Ang advantages nito ay mas magiging diversified ang company at mas adaptable, lalo na kung kailangan ng technical knowledge o malaking equipment. However, ang disadvantages nito ay pwedeng magka-conflict ang iba't ibang service units. And next is the geographical structure. Ito ay ginagamit ng mga companies na nakaspread out sa iba't ibang lugar. Ang advantages nito ay mas responsive ang company sa local or regional issues, pati na rin ang iba't iba pang kultura at batas. Pero ang disadvantages ay pwedeng magkaroon ng conflicts between different regions or locations. So lastly, we have the divisional structure. Ang structure na ito ay bagay sa mga diversified at international companies. Ang advantages nila ay may corporate strategic control pa rin, habang binibigay ng independence ang bawat division pagdating sa product and marketing. So, overall, sa bawat organizational structure ay may kanya-kanyang strength and weaknesses. At ang tamang structure ay depende sa pangangailangan at goals ng organization. And that ends my discussion. Thank you.